Okay, I'm going to start the meeting. Sherilyn?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. Now, is this, which one is this one? But I'm here.
Okay. I'd like to call to order, please, the City Council work session, Monday, September 9th. We're not all around the table, but I know Councilman Osborne is in the room someplace, so when...
She's in the building.
In the building. Thank you very much. So, but everyone else is here at the moment, and I'm sure, here she comes. Councilman Osborne has entered the room. So let's go to number 3, which is items for discussion. And the first item is an overview of the potential brine disposal feasibility study project through a cooperative agreement with the United States Bureau of Reclamation. Mark Holmes, Water Resource Manager, will present. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor Lord, members of the council. It's great to be here and talk about a feasibility study with the Bureau of Reclamation. I just want to point out that this evening we have Tom Polson. He's a civil engineer. He's a project manager with the Bureau of Rec, here to answer any questions you may have. And also we have Deborah Tosline, and she's a hydrogeologist and project manager with the Bureau as well. So if you have any specific questions during the presentation, please don't hesitate, and I'll call them up to answer your questions.
Great. Thank you. Now, do you mind, Council, how do you want to handle this? You want to be able to ask questions in between? You want to wait till he's done? Or, Mark, do you have any preference?
If it pleases the council, we can ask questions as we go along.
Okay, is that all right? I think we'll put it there.
I have a question.
Oh.
Is this in our Dropbox?
Yes, it should be in your Dropbox.
Okay.
Should be under the 2 presentations.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mark. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Work session topics. We're going to cover the Bullard Water Campus, where we're currently generating brine and treating groundwater. And we're going to talk about a pilot wetland project results that occurred there from 2011 and 2012. And talk about the proposed new feasibility project, and then the benefits to the city for this feasibility project, and then talk about the financial components. So if I were to give a mission statement of brine disposal, if there would be one, we'd look for the optimal approach for disposal. So we'd seek innovation methods for this that would be, number 1, cost effective, number 2, provide beneficial uses of water, and 3, are environmentally sustainable. So kind of keep that in your mind as we go through this presentation. We're trying to achieve these factors here. Here's an aerial shot of the Bullard Water Campus. And the current paradigm at the Bullard Water Campus is currently treating about 3.5 million gallons per day of groundwater pumped from the aquifer. The water campus uses reverse osmosis to treat pumped groundwater and produces 0.5 million gallons per day of concentrate, or I'll refer to it as brine. The brine contains high quantities of salts, metals, and nutrients. The brine is currently sent to the 157th Avenue Water Reclamation Facility for blending, where it accounts for about 12% of the capacity of that plant, but accounts for 40% of the salt loading of that facility.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Sherry?
Can you explain that to me in English? What does that mean?
If you're referring to the capacity,
That last paragraph, what does that mean to a layperson if I'm listening to this?
so currently we're blending, we're taking the brine and we're sending it through the sewer collection system to the reclamation plant where we treat our wastewater. So there's a volume of that water going to the plant, and it's consuming volume at that plant. So what we're going to talk about, and kind of jumping ahead a little bit, is can we get the brine out of the plant? That could free up capacity at the plant, which would treat basically wastewater and not have brine come in there. The 40% of the salt loading, the RO facility is actually taking groundwater, and after it goes through the RO process, you're left with this real brackish brine, salt-filled solution, and it's a real high concentration. So it's accounting for the salt loading. Of course, what's coming in the natural wastewater stream to the reclamation plant has a certain matrix and makeup. And, of course, we're loading that real heavy right now with that brine concentration. So removing this from the plant would actually get the plant potentially back into a more normal operating configuration, and then also free up capacity. That's kind of a goal we'll talk about in the presentation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that helps. Thanks.
You bet. Thank you. So I want to touch on one other thing. Let's see. that the city will be producing brine from the Bullard Water Campus, even though someday we will be taking CAP water directly to the city. The reason for that is we're still going to have peak summer demands. We're still going to need to pump groundwater and help with peak summer demands as the city continues to grow. In the wintertime, we're going to need to exercise those wells, make sure they're operating correctly in our lowest demand seasonal time of the year. So we're going to exercise those systems. And of course, the largest component of our portfolio is CAP water. And of course, we're going to potentially have shortages on the Colorado River that could potentially impact us ordering CAP water. So when that occurs, we're going to kind of talk about later on in a Vado Zone presentation, we're going to talk about how can we firm those shortages, and we'll kind of touch on that a little bit. But that would come through recovery of our long-term storage credits through these wells.
Joe?
Mark, I was reading somewhere in a paper on the CAP where they're looking at some potential shortages coming up. How's that going to impact us?
Well, I think we're going to be in a good place. Right now, the CAP has a mixture of priorities within what they're delivering to the CAP canal. The lowest priority water is excess CAP water. There still is a little bit of excess CAP water currently not yet used by subcontractors because they haven't grown into that volume they have acquired. Next on the lowest priority is agricultural priority water. These account for about somewhere between 500 and 600,000 acre feet per year. And then at the highest priority water is municipal and industrial and, of course, Indian community water. So when there's a shortage on the river, if there was a declaration made by the Secretary that would be a certain volume that could affect the CAP, there is that buffer of excess and agricultural priority water that will be shorted first. But if it goes above that 500 to 600,000 acre feet, M&I, municipal, industrial, or Indian community water would be impacted.
Are you
But it's
talking
going
about our water that we've ordered, that we're on the list for? Is that what you're
Well,
talking
I mean, we get some of that water that's recharged, correct?
Well, we currently order CAP water. We have the CAP recharge it for us.
Okay, and
Correct.
what I'm reading is that they could potentially have a shortage, and I'm wondering how that's going to impact what our availability is and what we're getting right
Yeah,
now,
what
not just
are
what
we
we're looking to
guaranteed?
buy.
I
or-
guess, I think, what he's saying, what of that water are we guaranteed before they start cutting back on? I mean,
Normally, we're going to get an advance warning by the Secretary of Interior that, for example, right now we're ordering water before October 1st for 2014. Right now, they're speculating 2016 might be a shortage. We're going to get that firmed up probably around 2015 before we do the order, and we'll know the impacts then. I suspect that we won't have an impact with municipal industrial ordering, but if we would, it means that we would be able to order less water than we currently could out of our portfolio to make that shortfall.
Okay.
We'd have to rely on our long-term storage credits to meet the replenishment obligation of what we're pumping.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. And of course, you probably have heard some of the southern solution aspects. Of course, this study, it's hoped that we could take what's learned from this study and extend it down to the south for the southern solution, which we anticipate could be generating brine as well if there's an RO facility due to the high TDS concentrations, the total dissolved solids, including salts and other components in the Rainbow Valley area. So the Bullard Water Campus Pilot Wetland Project, I just want to show you a couple images here. The upper left-hand corner was kind of when the pilot project first came online. You see in the lower left and the upper right, it's reaching full maturity. And then the lower right, another shot there. So it was a small-scale pilot to see if it worked, to take brine and create a brackish, a brine wetland, if you could remove specific components from the brine and make the water better quality. And we'll touch on that. So it was in 2007 the United States Bureau of Reclamation developed this concept approach for management of brine using an engineered wetland system for blending water. And in 2010, the Bureau conducted a pilot wetland brine study, disposal pilot project, in cooperation with the City of Goodyear, the City of Phoenix, and CH2M Hill as their engineering firm. The main goals of the wetland pilot study were to evaluate the feasibility of treating RO concentrate with brackish wetland, determine wetland system configuration and optimal plants that would obviously, hopefully, consume as much of the brine components as possible, and also look at developing sizing coefficients and operating parameters for future project implementation at a much larger scale. And then demonstrate blending of treated concentrate with reclaimed water to achieve river discharge, meet certain water quality parameters. That was actually not completed just due to some funding, but we'll talk about a little bit of the blending opportunities that we'll have. Just another shot showing the pilot project at its completion at the Bullard Water Campus. The conclusions of the pilot wetland were as follows. The wetland system was capable of effective treatment of RO brine and removal of metals and nutrients. The plants thrived in the brine, so that was very successful, and the plants grew. They did what they were supposed to do. They were removing the various components from the brine. And this generated a lot of interest from the Environmental Protection Agency and the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. They definitely right now they've been a part of the process, the stakeholder process. How would they permit these facilities? How effective would they be? And then looking at what type of monitoring activities to ensure that if there's any discharges into rivers or waters of the U.S. that they would meet permitting requirements. So they're very interested in this and seeing the success of this move forward.
Joe?
Wetlands, will this generate wildlife?
There's a possibility that wildlife could find homes or habitats within these parameters, absolutely.
Okay, my second question is I'm not really sure exactly where that's going to be built. Any problem with the airports?
Absolutely. If there is certain requirements, certain buffers around the airport, such as the FAA restrictions on open bodies of water and waterfowl and so forth, we'll have to account for that in the feasibility study. We'll take that into consideration. It may not be the most suitable site. There's other potential sites that may be even more suitable just for that very reason. It avoids having FAA restrictions.
Okay.
That's a great question. Thank you.
The birds want some salty grass, that's where they'll be going, right?
They like
So the proposed new feasibility study goals are as follows. To identify potential sites or site for a demonstration scale brine wetland project. And of course, ultimately identify the best site. There may be more than one site. That could be a chain of sites. Develop a preliminary design based on that site. Develop a detailed cost estimate. And define the permitting and environmental parameters and requirements. And at the end of the day, we want to produce a report that outlines all of these feasibility components. So at the end of the day, this goal of this feasibility study is to have a detailed report that we can use as a tool to take the next step, potentially. I just want to touch on the benefits outlined here to the city. The United States Bureau of Reclamation is a partnership. They are contributing $300,000 of in-kind and in-cash. They're also contributing their expertise and talents towards this project, and they have quite a team behind them. And ultimately, and what I think we're all hoping for, and I've talked with several folks at the Bureau, the goal of this, if successful, is to solicit funding from the federal government. So the goal, if this is successful, is to seek additional funding from the feds and try and work towards actually constructing this implementation project. And I definitely, I know it's a lot of information on this slide, but I think it's really worthy of an approach that we're trying to take, going back to that, if you were to have a mission statement, the benefits I see with the city. In 2010, the Central Arizona Salinity Study Report, this is referred to as the CAS study, have been doing work on salt in the Phoenix Valley for well over 10 years. And they looked at strategic alternatives for brine disposal in the Valley of the Sun, and they identified various types of brine disposal methods and the costs. And so the table you see here outlined has the alternative comparisons, and it's in millions of dollars. And it's looking at a kind of an average valley-wide type of brine type of configuration. So 10 million gallons per day of brine that would need disposal is what was looked at under this comparison. I organized these based on the highest capital investment. As you see, as the first line item is capital, next is operation and maintenance, or O&M, and the last is the annualized cost, total cost for each of these comparisons. The largest capital investment is your evaporation ponds. You can see it has a large, for a 10 MGD, you're looking at an average of $651 million just to get the capital project developed. The next two are really additional technologies. One is referred to as enhanced RO, or VSEP, which is vibratory shear enhancement process. I'm not an expert in all these processes, but it's a way of actually trying to get more water out of the brine, but you're left with even a higher concentration but a smaller volume. Similarly is a brine concentrator. These are devices, equipment that are used to extract more water. And you see they have very large, not as high as the evaporation ponds, but they have very large capital investments. Even explored was a pipeline to Yuma. That was looking at taking brine or brackish water down to the Ciénaga de Santa Clara, the brinish, brackish wetland down there that has developed from the tailwater from the Welt Mohawk Irrigation District. It's very brine. And of course, wetland surface discharge, and you can see that also has not as high, but it's still a substantial capital investment. You can see the O&M for the various ones. The deep well injection that was also looked at, but currently it is off the table because it's currently not allowed by state law. So we'll touch on that a little bit later when we talk about the financial components. But overall, at the end of the day, when you see the annualized numbers, you see that wetlands and surface water discharge has the lowest annualized cost. So we're trying to look at this is a viable potential solution. It has been identified as the lowest cost annualized. So we're going to look at that as an approach. I kind of include some pictures there. I think the worst is that evaporation ponds. That looks pretty bad.
At least it looks natural.
Additional benefits to the city. The city is getting a more comprehensive brine feasibility study than was originally planned in the CIP. The original CIP plan talked about a brine disposal method using deep well injection. So not only would you, and there was a certain dollar amount, which we'll touch on a little bit later, but it looked at a current feasibility process that's currently not allowed by state law. So even if it was something to explore, it's still against state law. We'd have to approach statutory changes. And I'm having discussions with the Department of Environmental Quality. They're very concerned about this because the deep well injection will go into aquifers that they believe someday may be future water supplies. So are we creating an unintended consequence for the future of a future water supply that we may have to embark on using? So they're concerned about that. The findings from the study may provide real solutions towards brine disposal for the Bullard Water Campus, as we touched on. And again, this may provide, if successful, it could provide some solutions for that. We've been talking about the Rainbow Valley issues and brine disposal that may occur there as well. If constructed, these wetlands could promote environmental sustainability. We kind of talked a little bit. There could be wildlife enhancements. They could sustain or enhance riparian areas. We have a few of those within the city. The Bullard Wash is one. I think that's being even considered in the parks master planning. They could provide new recreational and educational amenities or enhance current planned recreational or existing areas. And we already touched on this earlier. It could free the 0.5 million gallons of capacity at the reclamation facility and remove the 40% of the salt loading at the plant. That would actually improve the effluent water quality substantially. And again, real quickly, U.S. Bureau brings $300,000 in kind and cash. The City of Goodyear would have a 50% match requirement with this feasibility study, which would be money in kind and cash. We propose a fiscal year 13, the original brine disposal for deep well injection. So we'll be coming to you tonight in the regular council meeting to talk about reallocation of that funds for this feasibility study. And then the remainder in the fiscal year 14-15 as the 168,430 would be an in-kind match. And we've shared the in-kind cost schedule with the various department heads who would be involved, which is Parks and Rec, its engineering, its development services, and a few others, and GIS. And they are very comfortable with us meeting our in-kind match. As I just mentioned, tonight's regular council meeting will request to approve a resolution that would approve the city manager to sign, approve all, or designate approve all agreements for this feasibility study. And we request a reallocation of the funds from the original brine feasibility toward this project. And with that, I'll happily address any questions. And I was right on time, 20 minutes.
Thank you. Questions? Bill?
Mark, are there any other communities that are using, sorry, that are, let me go on to Wally for a minute.
Take a drink. Bill, take a drink. And Wally, go ahead. You ask your question.
Mine's real simple. How long is this study going to take? And when do you propose it start?
We propose as, if it's approved, we propose kicking it off in October. And right now it's looking at a one-year schedule, but we anticipate that with any types of complications or additional analysis needed, we can keep extending year by year until we complete it. I believe the agreement is proposed to go to a maximum of 5 years with
Okay.
one-year extensions.
Thank you.
You ready, Bill?
Okay, I'll try it now. Are there any other communities that are using the RO process at this time?
Using a wetland as a disposal method?
No, the RO process that's creating the brine that are nearby.
That is a great question. If Mark Siemens, do you know? Okay, I'm going to put Mark on the spot here. I'm not familiar with the water distribution side as well as probably Mark is.
Good evening. Currently, the city of Goodyear has the largest RO plant for potable use. There are some smaller utilities using 500,000 gallon a day type sizes, but nothing as large as this for potable use, for drinking water purposes.
And I guess where I'm to part two of that question then is, do we have a partnering opportunity here with anybody that as a result of our study and our findings that we can perhaps we could draw somebody into this?
You mean another city?
Another city, another water company, a public-private partnership. Is there anybody that is in that same arena that makes that part of this feasible?
I would speculate that the answer would be yes. We haven't reached out right now other than just with the Bureau and trying to complete. If we, at the end of the day, we find out it's not successful, then, it would be back to some other type of technology that was in that table I showed you. But to your point, I think that we can definitely reach out and see if there's anybody interested as soon as we can and see if they want to be a part of the process.
I think if we're using similar technologies and we all end up with the same problem at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we've got this brine, we've got to do something with it. So if we can partner with other water companies, and I'm just going to call that generic, whether they be
Public or
municipal or
private,
private,
yeah.
then I think we've got a better opportunity, and then we can do something even regionally as if this thing actually gets approved and we move forward. So it's just throwing it out there.
I can tell you, Bill, that the mayors are meeting on the water issues, the Southwest mayors. And they're looking at partnering, and they're looking at information and understanding the Southwestern water issues. And so that probably would fall right in the line of that. I know I spoke to you about that. And also, all right, tell me the other organization. You said it's looking at water.
WestCaps?
WestCaps.
WestCaps.
Okay. You can kind of just give them an overview a little bit on WestCap.
Sure, real briefly. The WestCaps, it's the West Valley Central Arizona Project Subcontractors is kind of the big long, so they call it WestCaps. It's 9 entities made up of municipalities and private water providers coming together to try and address West Valley issues. Meaning the lack of regional infrastructure, I think to your point, looking at groundwater treatment facilities, surface water treatment facilities. You see we're dealing with high TDS in our aquifer that has to go through RO, which is very expensive. The West Valley groundwater has a lot of those types of similarities. And I think there's this push with WestCaps is to look at obtaining or working together towards Central Arizona Project solutions, which obviously the Colorado has a much better, it's a much better water quality solution, but it comes with a huge price tag, both from owning the water supply and then building the surface water treatment plant to treat, and then how do you deliver that to the entities within the West Valley. So those challenges, I think WestCaps is really looking at economy of scale of coming together and seeing if they can address some of these issues and find the economy of scale and hopefully have a win-win versus winners and losers in the West Valley, since the West Valley is 1 million population strong.
And the group of mayors, is going to be working with ASU. And we wanted to invite all the councils, but I guess there's a limitation on space. So we will certainly try to rectify that later, but at the beginning, we'll start in small groups and then see how we can merge the rest of the councils in there. Wally?
My question, Mark, is if you do reach out to other cities or entities, will there be a possibility we could share the cost?
That's definitely a possibility. If at the end of the day they may decide that we'll go through this and they'll just seek public information that we generate, since we're both public entities. But we can definitely, if they have a specific challenge that's different than ours, and they want to spend some dollars towards maybe looking at a little bit more geochemical or some sort of chemistry solution, we definitely have an opportunity to explore with entities that are sharing in this. Thank you. Just one more thing to add on West Caps, if you don't mind. There's a huge push right now to develop a new strategic plan. And it's kind of like the sleeping giant woke up. Suddenly, the West Caps is looking at, should they be a 501c4, lobbying attributes? Should they have a well-defined strategic plan where they can look at, I think there was considerations for the Andy Tobin bill, which looked at authorities being created that would allow for special financial possibilities. So there's a lot of discussions. I think you're going to see a lot more activity from the planning committee, and also the managers committee are going to start getting together in September and October and start discussing these strategic plans to what should they be when they grow up. I think is how they're going to look at this. What are the solutions to the West Valley now that we can start addressing?
Well, I would love the council to have that information as it goes along. I know they're not in-stone solutions, but if we could have the information as part of the conversation, then I think it's helpful to us understanding what the barriers might be. So
We can definitely follow up with that.
all right, thank you. Any other questions on this? Thank you. It was a great presentation. Appreciate it. I just want the council to know that we're going to go on to item 2. But if we run out of time, we have to start the meeting at 6 o'clock. So what we'll do is then we'll come back to item 3 after the regular meeting. So let's go to item 2. Is a presentation to provide an update on ADOT's policy, transportation funding, and issues tied to the economy and the economic vitality of Arizona. To provide an update on Loop 303 project between Interstate 10, I-10, and proposed State Route 30. David Ramirez?
Good
Welcome,
evening.
David.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you stated, tonight we have 2 brief presentations from ADOT, one having to do with transportation policy as it relates to economic vitality statewide as well as the region, and the second is on the Loop 303 project between I-10 and SR30. We have several representatives from ADOT, Centra Hoffman, Jennifer Grentz, Michelle Thompson, and also one of the project managers from Parsons Bricker Hoffman's here. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Centra for the first presentation.
Welcome. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll try to keep this presentation brief so that Jen can get into the meat and potatoes of what's really happening in this community, so you guys can dig into some questions. The presentation that I'm here to talk to you about this evening is some of the policy issues that we're facing in Arizona, particularly in Maricopa County, but really it's a statewide issue that we're facing. At ADOT, we have been working closely with the economic development community, the cities and towns in Arizona, and really making the push on connecting economic development and transportation infrastructure. And while that sounds like it's a no-brainer to most of us that have been working in this, it really isn't to the general public, because they take it for granted as another utility, that they're going to get out there and the roads are going to be in great repair and everything's going to work great. And when it doesn't, you get the calls. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're in front of you to talk to you about some of the steps that we need to take as a state to get ahead of this. So we're looking at planning for the future and some of the things that we have in the pipeline for down the road. And then also, Mayor, as you're well aware, the policy issues that we're facing and some of the political decisions that need to be made to address this. First, I want to talk about some of the good stuff that's happened and that we've been able to live through and reap the benefits of. We've made a lot of significant improvements in Maricopa County and Pima County statewide when the economic times were good. And we've seen the benefits of it in Goodyear. I'm drawing a blank. Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero coming in. I mean, that was pretty big for the city. Up in Surprise, the Posada Mall, the region First Solar. So as a region, I think we've really grown and really boomed and done really well. Down in Pima County, ADOT's also investing $100 million worth of infrastructure improvements down there too. So statewide, we're making some significant improvements. And again, that was that was when we were in at a department of expansion. Our budget, 76% of it was allocated for expansion and about 23% in preservation. Now with the funding situation that you're well aware of, we're making a shift, unfortunately, and we're going towards more of that 76% is in preservation and the 23% is more in expansion. But as you well know, we've seen what we can do, what we can accomplish when we have funds to build, and what happens to our communities in the good times. So we want to make sure that we kind of balance that a little bit. So we're looking at what we need to do to gear up for the future. And you've all heard of I-11, Interstate 11 coming through, and that really is a trade corridor. The current study limits right now are between Las Vegas and Phoenix, but spread into southern Arizona. So we're looking at connections to the 4 ports along the southern Arizona border. We're also, and right now there's 2 things I want to point out on that study. One is 2 pieces of information that's on the website, which is i11study.com. One is a justification report that really zeroes in on, do we need this? If we're going to spend significant dollars on this corridor, do we really need this? And obviously we do. The second is we're going to be working with the Arizona Commerce Authority on a business case analysis. So much like when you entertain a development agreement, you ask your developer to provide an impact analysis on the project. Is it going to make money if you invest in it? And we're going to be doing the same thing for I-11, is providing a business case analysis. So when we look to private investors in the future, we're going to be showing them where, in fact, if you invest in this, there's an opportunity to get a return on your investment. Secondly is a passenger rail corridor study, and that is connecting the two major cities in Arizona, Phoenix and Tucson. And again, when we try to compete globally for economic development opportunities, these are some of the connections that you're well aware of that site selectors are looking for. They're looking for quality of life issues, they're looking for that big city type amenities, and they're looking for that connectivity. We also have a border master plan that's identified significant improvements that we need to take care of along the border. These things on this slide, unfortunately, are unfunded, but it's important to get in front of you to let you know that just because we don't have the money to build it, just because we don't have the money to build it today doesn't mean that we're not thinking about it, that we don't need it for competition, and that we don't need to get it in front of you to let you know that we're planning for it. So the border master plan, again, it looks at the port improvements that we need to move that trade and commerce through more expeditiously than we have. And while, obviously there's significant infrastructure improvements that need to be made, there's also technological improvements that have been put in place so far that has helped with the truck traffic, with the truck wait times. And we have our system, Service Arizona, that we get our license and things like that from. Well, the same thing, the truckers can get their permits online, and if they get their permit and everything's good to go, they just roll right on through, and everything's good to go. So that's also helped with the wait times. What we're looking at, again, is making sure that we're capitalizing on the region's assets. We've got a lot of great things in Arizona. We've got, we're positioned in between 2 giants. There's a lot of money flowing between east-west, between California and Texas, and we're poised right in the middle to capture that. Instead of it continuing to go through our state, we're poised to capture it and to really position Arizona as the Southwest regional hub. So these are the things that we're working on, that we're looking for your support on. And the Trade and Transportation and Trade Corridor Alliance, I'm hoping that you've heard of that. It was commissioned started by the governor last year, and the Transportation and Trade Corridor Alliance is a 25-member steering committee that was put together by the governor, and it's co-chaired by Director Helikowski of ADOT, Sandra Watson of Commerce Authority, and Arizona-Mexico Commission Director Margie Ammerman. The 3 state directors, along with former Congressman Jim Colby, chair that committee. They've brought in approximately 25 members from the business community, BNSF, all in the logistics area. BNSF, APL, which is the second largest shipping company in the world, Phoenix Sky Harbor, MAG, PAG are at the table, UPS, basically all of the heavy users out there to help us identify what infrastructure needs are needed to improve the business climate in Arizona and where we need to go in the future. And this group has actually reached out through a variety of focus groups to over 100 other business leaders in the community statewide, and they're working on a roadmap that's going to go to the governor's desk. So this is basically telling us what we need and where we need to go, and obviously how we need to fund it, which is the big thing. I'm just going to hit on this real briefly because I think you're aware of our situation financially. We get our funding from three major sources: the gas tax, vehicle license taxes, and federal funding. And it's no secret, gas tax revenues have been on the decline, and our gas tax has not been raised in over 20 years. The federal portion of it is 18 cents on the gallon. And it has not been indexed for inflation. So we figure that's worth roughly between 6 and 8 cents a gallon, and that's what we're living on. So it's essentially, in a nutshell, this model is no longer cutting it for us. So we've got to think of different options and something outside of the box. Vehicle registration, also with the gas tax, we're facing behavioral change. Kids are getting their license later. Fuel-efficient vehicles, telecommuting, the list goes on. Vehicle license tax has also been on the decline, or was also on the decline. We're starting to see an uptick in it. Folks are now starting to buy vehicles again, not the luxury vehicles that they did in the past, but they are starting to buy, purchase vehicles again. And then finally, federal funding, which is also becoming more challenging for us. I want to leave you with the issue that we're all facing, that you're all facing as policymakers, is this is a policy decision and discussion that's been happening nationwide. It's not something that's just isolated to Arizona or that we're facing. And I described our situation in terms of where we are, that 18 cents on the gallon, we are in the bottom tier in terms of collections nationwide. But as you can see from this map, the states that are depicted in orange, both colors of orange, have taken up this issue in their legislative discussions during last legislative session. The states in green have not, and that includes Arizona. So we're hoping that this next session coming up, that Arizona will be in the orange. The states in light orange, California, Wyoming, Vermont, and Virginia, they've actually taken action. And I'm just going to point out a couple examples. Wyoming actually took action and passed a 10-cent hike on their gas tax. So, I mean, they're a small state, conservative state, but geographically spread out. So they need these things.
Joanne?
Sandra, so on Wyoming's case, was this something that they did legislatively, or was this a vote of the public?
Legislatively. Yeah.
In California, when was that passed?
Yes, that was passed.
Do you know when? Recently, right?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was last session. Yes, Mayor.
They normally raise their gas tax every couple of years anyway, because they tag on additional taxes onto it, but to keep the roads level, the
But you know,
funding, they
I
try to
wondered,
raise that.
because I don't see it in the roads.
Well, no, they don't take care of the roads
Yeah, I
either.
mean, I find that very interesting. That concerns me. If you do it, then it better be on repairing the roads, because there's very few California roads that I can say are fun to drive on.
Because part
so.
of that gas tax goes to
Yeah.
fund their courts and juvenile and domestic violence and other things,
So whoops, huh?
Yeah, lots.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Campbell, that you're telling us something that we've heard before, is if we do anything, down the road like this, there has to be some protections put in place. So we've heard that loud and clear statewide.
Good.
So
And
that the money goes just to the roads,
Exactly.
and it's not siphoned off somewhere else.
Right, absolutely.
It's not fair to the voters either.
No.
Right, absolutely. Virginia did something that was kind of interesting too. They replaced part of their gas tax with a sales tax. So basically, everyone pays. And if you think about moving goods and services, it makes sense because I may not drive, but I purchased this pen and it got to me. So that's their philosophy on how they've done things. So not easy discussions to have, but definitely something that we're not dealing with alone. It's a nationwide issue.
It's political, and that's where the toughie is. It's, will the people have the fortitude to vote for what we need to have, or is it going to be all political and I want to get elected the next year? So that's, yeah.
This can't be kicked literally down the road anymore. I mean, it just needs to be
Well,
dealt
it would be a
with.
shame for Arizona because really we have some wonderful roads here. And why do we want those to get deteriorated in the meantime? And then delay building the roads we really need, and especially having any input in that I-11, so,
Right.
yeah.
Thank you. And honestly, that's why I think that this slide is the most powerful in the presentation because it does come down to political will, but it also, as elected officials, let you know that you're not the only one facing this, and so it's tough, but everyone's dealing with it nationwide. I think, it might help it to be a little bit easier. I don't know. I'll have to check in a little bit later, I guess, Mayor. You're looking at me like I'm a little bit crazy. So again, we're looking forward. We're very optimistic. We're doing these presentations statewide. We've met with over 300 local businesses, large businesses, small businesses. We're aligned with the Arizona Commerce Authority, with their industry sectors, because we realize that we lived and died by the construction industry, and we died by the construction industry. And so as we move into the next phase of what Arizona is going to look like, we can't continue to do what we did in the past. We've got to diversify our economy. We've got to diversify our jobs. And our job at ADOT is to lay the foundation for ACA and for Arizona Mexico Commission and their efforts, and to help bring jobs into the state. So with that, I open it up to any questions, so I can turn it over to my
Questions?
coworkers.
Oh, you did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll turn it over to, go ahead, David.
Thank you, Sintra. If there are no more questions, we'll move into the second part of the presentation, which is the Loop 303 from
Great.
I-10 to Van Buren, or sorry, I-10 to SR 30. And I'll move back in the audience. We have Jennifer Grentz and Tom O'Reilly who will be presenting.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here today. We're going to go a little bit over the project and what it's about, and then we'll head into the outreach and the kind of outreach we'll be doing leading up into the public hearing.
Hi, I'm Tom O'Reilly. I'm with Parsons Brinkerhoff. We're the corridor manager for ADOT for the 303. And this project that we're looking at now is the Loop 303 from I-10 down to SR 30, which is also known as the I-10 reliever. Just to get oriented here on the map, at the top, is I-10. Does this have a menu? Oh, here we go. There we go. Okay, this is I-10 along here. This is Cotton Lane, where you see the yellow, and it comes down and goes across the river here, Gila River, along here. And the SR 30 is going to be somewhere in this red hatched area. That's its corridor, general corridor area through this vicinity. The yellow is the current corridor study limits for the SR 303. And as it gets down here and combines with the SR 30 corridor, that's where we envision that there would be a large system-to-system TI, similar to what we're going to have up here at I-10.
Are we talking about Broadway? Is that
Yeah, just
the
north.
Broadway? It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Broadway is right in here, or no, right in here, and there's the Rubbermaid plant. You can just see it
Okay.
kind of right there. So that kind of gets us oriented. Jackrabbit, Perryville, Citrus, of course, Cotton Lane, and Saraville there. So the study is a couple of things. We have a design concept report, which looks at the engineering, the layouts, the alternatives that will be studied. Get rid of that. Oh, well, not having luck with that. And then there will also be an environmental assessment, which will look at the environmental impacts, and that will look at the environmental impacts for the entire corridor, both for a no-build situation or the three alternatives that we're currently studying in that area. The schedule for these, we're hoping to have a draft environmental assessment and initial design concept report in February of next year. And then in March, we hope to go to a public hearing. And then by the end of April or late spring sometime, we hope to have the final for that. Now, the facility, it's proposed to be a 4+1 urban freeway. As I mentioned, we'll be looking, it's always required to look at the no-build situation versus the build situation, and we have three alternatives for that. Let's see. Those alternatives would...
Ready? Excuse me, Wally
I
has
have
a
a question. I just want to understand this completely. Is this to tie into the present 303?
Yes, it will.
Is this going to be the one arm that's just built there for now in the middle of nowhere?
No, it will extend from the I-10. It'll hook into that TI, which is being constructed now.
That's that left arm. I mean, that.
This will be the south arm
The
of that
south
leg.
arm that's just built.
Well, what's being built currently are the directional ramps that go to and from the north.
Okay.
And the 303 is being extended all the way up to US 60. Some of it's opening already.
So is this the first step to finish or to start 303 south?
That's correct.
Okay.
That is exactly correct.
And is it aligned where our city wanted it aligned? Or is this a different project?
No, I think this is the same project we've been looking at.
Yes, and it as you can see here, the yellow corridor, the yellow hatched area goes down Cotton Lane, really straight down Cotton Lane until you get south of Lower Buckeye. And then it expands out because down there are some more uncertainties as to what exactly, how exactly the 303 will hook into the I-10 reliever.
Okay, so it's parallel to our Cotton Lane Bridge in Estrella,
No, that's
No.
further south.
No,
further south?
The
No.
Cotton Lane Bridge
It's not
is-
even anywhere near it? Okay,
no, it's across the mountain there.
all right.
I answered it, I'm sorry. You
That's
should
fine,
be-
yeah,
you should
that's
be
fine.
answering that.
Cotton Lane Bridge.
Yes, let's see, let me, okay.
It's
Here-
hard to tell exactly.
Here is the river. If you look right, see my,
Yeah,
my cursor there? And the bridge is this little white strip here.
Do you
And then
have
it
any
can-
other
Oh,
map?
got
Do you
it,
have any other
okay.
map on there that could show anything, or is that's it? Okay.
That's it. You know, as you continue down Cotton Lane, of course, down in this vicinity, probably down in here somewhere, is where Estrella Mountain Ranch is.
okay, so this is gonna run east-west over Cotton.
It runs north-south down Cotton Lane. Cotton Lane will be replaced by the freeway, although there will be frontage roads on each side where it goes over Cotton Lane.
Okay, I'm sorry, with the red and this going this way, I was thinking the road was going that way.
There
But
is
you're
a-
saying the road's going this way?
That's correct. There's another proposed freeway, SR 30.
Yeah.
That's the red.
And that's the one that's gonna go that way?
That's correct. That's
Okay,
the
got
red
it.
that goes east and west.
This is why Canyon Trails wanted to be where they were,
Okay.
the shopping center.
Sherry?
I just want to follow up because I know you all were probably at some of the community meetings up at Estrella, and the biggest concern was, and that's what Wally was bringing up, I think, was if it jumps the river at Cotton Lane, they're concerned the freeway is going to go through Estrella. So right now, from what you're telling me, it doesn't look like it's going to jump the river at Cotton Lane.
No, I can't say that. The alternatives that we're looking at right now include two alternatives that would take the freeway down through Rainbow Valley.
Yes, and
And
one of those is the city's preferred, right?
That's correct. And the other alternative, it continues down Cotton Lane and then goes along the eastern edge of the Estrella Mountain Ranch where it was.
Yeah, that's the one the residents were very vocal that they didn't
Right.
want. So,
That's
yeah.
Right, that's
that's
what
the
I was
people that were at the BLM
Yeah.
meeting
Yeah, the
and
Rainbow Valley
Rainbow people, and of course, do not want that. What?
Oh, it is the one?
That's the one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the
Not
one.
our residents. That's the one Rainbow
the one
Valley
Rainbow
wants you to
Valley.
go through Estrella.
Yeah. And there, so that it's going to be a bone of
It's a little
contention there. for
confusing, I'm
certain.
sorry.
Yeah.
And our study right now, it's a long time until the SR 30 will be constructed. It's unfunded at this time. But our study is looking at covering all the options down there so that we can environmentally clear that area no matter what happens with the 303 to the south, whenever that happens.
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
think We all want to be assured of that environmental study. I don't know, I brought an article into the city manager today on the South Mountain, and there was an article in the paper this weekend where they accused the EIS of not being, what was the word I want to use, truthful, and using the right method for this environmental study. And I brought it into him because I said, hey, you know, I really don't want that to happen to us, so we need to look in how we can prevent this from happening. We want citizens to, I mean, I know we're going to have to agree to disagree somewhere along the way, because we've got two communities that don't want it in their backyard. It's got to go somewhere. So we know we've had that to contend with, but I just want to be assured. That's why I brought the article into him, that we don't have that occurrence happen in our studies in this direction. Jerry?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The process is very important, especially from the federal standpoint.
Yes.
And I think the other thing is that the residents up in Estrella really want to be heard before the decision's made. I know they were heard before, but before, they don't want to feel like they've already been, the decision's been made and they weren't given notice. I also have a concern about, and remember the, what was it, the South Mountain, no, not South Mountain, the Sun Park Freeway that was supposed to go up, that they, the development, it cost millions of dollars for the houses up through Central Phoenix that ADOT bought, and because since this is unfunded, we keep getting things from Estrella, from Newland, from the developer, and we need to know, you know, before, if a freeway is going in there, when we're working with our developer, I guess.
Correct. Well, I was just going to add that, and really, at the end of the day, the last thing we need to do is wait another 10 or 15 years and then look at this again. I mean, this is one of those things that it may seem, it's unfunded, it may seem that it's way out in the future, but it's something that for planning reasons, we just need to figure it out now and not wait and then make it even more detrimental to someone's home in the future. And so, I know it seems to some people, it seems odd that we discuss this of something that may not happen for 25 years. We don't know. Well, I mean, it may be sooner than that, but we really don't know, and it's not something that we should just be, having a ho-hum, thought to.
No, pre-planning is always better.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Well, if we could look at the project considerations there, really this is some of the things that are coming up. The first item there is the I-10 303 TI Phase 2. That will connect the ramps from I-10 to the 303 South. It will actually connect them into Cotton Lane.
That's 2019 funding, right?
That's 2016 for the
2016.
construction. Design is actually slated to begin next year.
Okay.
Then the next project that's in the ADOT program, the Regional Transportation Program, is the section from Van Buren down to MC 85. And what that really does would build the freeway from Van Buren south over Lower Buckeye Road, and then have a temporary connection into Cotton Lane until such time as the 30 came along and those connections from a freeway to freeway would be needed. So that is scheduled for construction in 2023.
Wally?
We just want to be sure that those areas that are affected really have an opportunity to talk about it to ADOT, because we just went through not a very comfortable situation with the 303 going through Canyon Trails and changing roads and doing detours and getting caught off guard because we didn't know we were going to have so much traffic on those streets. So as you go down, I hope this is not going to be the only presentation we have until you start doing your public hearings. I mean, I hope you will keep us in the loop and keep talking to us about this so that we can be assured that all of us are being heard. Please.
We have progress meetings, and city staff are always invited and involved in those progress meetings. We do have the public hearing coming up in March.
Well, be sure that we know when that public hearing is, please, and where it's going to be, because I'd like to be there.
Yes.
And we're happy to come back at any time in the process.
Thank you.
and
I just
update
think
you.
that's real important, because this, like Councilmember Osborne said, this may be down the road 20, 25 years, but this is something we need to talk about now and be aware of and make sure we understand where this is exactly going and what you're going to be doing.
So as I mentioned, that Van Buren to what we call MC85 section, it really would tie into the existing Cotton Lane south of Lower Buckeye Road. It would handle all the alternatives that are out there on the table in the future. And then the SR30, as I mentioned, is unfunded in the current regional transportation plan, and along with its connection into the 303 back up to the north. There's no funding in the program for the 303 extension to the south at this time. So. Any more questions on?
Questions, council? Sherry?
How far out, you said funding in the program, how far out is that projected when you say the program? How far out are projects funded?
It's based on the Prop 400, the 20-year sales tax that went from 2005 to 2025.
So basically, unless that's past 225, it's not even there.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, they have them programmed in date, but there are no funding sources to pay for them. They have hopes.
So what would the hopes be for the?
Another half-cent extension of the sales tax.
Oh, okay,
for
so
another 20 years possible.
it doesn't even get on the list unless there's another half cent. It doesn't make the list.
Or other funding sources come available.
Okay.
It's considered in the unfunded phase at this
Okay.
point. All right, so now we'll get into a little bit of the outreach as Tom went over a little bit of the schedule. So as you know, the study was placed on hold in 2009, and then this past year, it was reinitiated. Coming up, what you'll be able to see this fall and winter is we'll start doing the outreach. This council update is a part of that. Then we'll get started with public involvement, and one piece of that is going to be sending out a mailer, letting all of the stakeholders know that the study has been reinitiated, so that we're just not jumping into a hearing and they didn't, get any other information. And then we'll be doing some business outreach. And as part of that business outreach, we'll be doing some business forums. We'll be doing some, business walks. We'll be getting a hold, there's a lot of corporate businesses down here, so getting a hold of who we need to contact so that we can make sure those people are getting the information, because a lot of times when you walk into the store, the people working there can't make a decision for that business. So we need to get in touch with the right person. We'll also be meeting.
I'm going to interrupt you just a moment.
Yes.
Can we do some of these schedules, publish them in Focus?
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yes,
That'd be a
the-
good idea, because that gets
Well,
around to so many people that might be very helpful to people that may not always be looking at the paper, or they throw the postcard away or whatever, so.
Yes, Mayor, and to that point, as the schedule gets even more detailed to it, we can work closely with ADOT to make sure that we use our communication sources
Okay,
as well.
great. All right, thank you.
And then we'll also reach out to Mr. Paxton to make sure that, and we're covering all the businesses that he wants, as well as the Southwest Valley Chamber. So we'll be doing a lot of outreach there. In early spring, that's when the draft EA and DCR is slated to be available. So we'll do, we are required to do an ad per the NEPA process. But we'll also do a mailer, and we'll have the public hearing. And then, as Tom said, in late spring, it's anticipated that the final EA and DCR will be available. So the goal of our outreach is to support the process and make sure that the public voice is heard and considered as we reach our final decisions. So here's kind of a little bit more of the plan. Basically what I had stated is we will be doing 2 mailers, one coming out hopefully the end of this month, early October, to let people know the study is initiated, one to announce the hearing as that gets closer. We've already started reaching out to the HOAs to find out when their meetings are, so that we can let people know how to participate. So we can't necessarily go out and present the information that will be at the hearing, but we can go out and tell them how their voice can be heard. And the same thing with community events. We'll host a table if we're allowed to somewhere in front of the library or other community sectors, so that we can make sure that information is out there. We will offer 2 business forums, and we'll also meet with any businesses upon request. And if the city wants someone there, we're more than happy to make sure that that person is included. And then we'll have the public hearing next spring, anticipating March.
Any questions?
Questions?
No questions?
Thank you so much
Well,
for
thank
having
you so
us.
much, and we do appreciate it. I know that even though the public says they're not being informed, I have seen the cards, and I have seen the advertisements in the paper, and I have through a lot of media. It's just that some people nowadays are so busy that, they don't take the time and they miss it. So if we can figure out how to catch the misses, that maybe they'll look at our magazine, maybe that will help. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we have 30 minutes. I'm going to ask staff, is that going to be enough, do you think, to do this next presentation? Yes?
Yes,
Okay, well, great.
be close.
Item 3, and is that VADOS or VADOS? How do you pronounce that method? I'll say this, but the last item is the overview of the pertinent activities relating to a current method versus a permanent proposed solution of a what zone?
VADOS.
VADOS, thank you. It didn't tell me if it was a long or a short. VADOS zone injection well system for discharging reclaimed water from 157th Avenue Water Reclamation Facility after the decommissioning of the soil aquifer treatment recharge. Mark Holmes to present. Mark?
Thank you again, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Yes, VADOS for Vadosus, Latin. You got to have fancy terms in geology, I guess, too, just like attorneys and others. Okay, briefly, work session topics again. I'm going to talk about, if you bear with me, I want to provide a little bit of background. I'll kind of go through quickly to kind of set the stage for where we want to try and go with this proposal on the VADOS zone injection well system. So I'm going to talk about the Class A reclaimed water generated by the 157th Avenue Reclamation Facility, and then actually jump into then the proposed VADOS zone injection well project, and then talk again about benefits to the city, and then the financial components. There's a shot there of the 157th Avenue Water Reclamation Facility. And it currently is delivering, the city currently is delivering 8,700 acre feet of potable water through our entire water distribution system. And of that, you probably recall from the work
Could you
session
just tell the public how many gallons that is, just for the public?
1 acre foot is 325,851 gallons.
Thank you.
It's a lot of water. If you recall from the work session last October, approximately 40% of that is collected, what's used in the home or the business or the commercial enterprise, collected through the sewer collection system and makes its way to the 157th Avenue Reclamation Facility, and then is treated and turned into Class A plus effluent or reclaimed water. And currently today, we are generating 3,500 acre feet at the plant. And it has a, just want to kind of be very specific, currently has a water value of about $600,000. Reclaimed water has a parallel track with what the value of CAP, Central Arizona Project water, is, of what it would take to replenish the aquifer if we chose to purchase CAP water versus using reclaimed water of what we pump on an annual basis. By the year 2035, it's projected the reclamation plant will be producing about 8,000, a little bit more than 8,000 acre feet per year of reclaimed water. That's based on a trend model. Want to touch on 3 generalized water reuse methods. Just kind of talk about the diversity between these 3 methods, and then kind of we'll jump into the more specifics of the VADOS zone. But kind of give you a background on these, and first will be the direct deliveries and reuse. This is the famous purple pipe, and I will be coming back in the near future and talking more about purple pipe and within the city. The next is constructed recharge projects. Those would be similar to what you're familiar with the city's former SAT site. This would also be what would be classified the VADOS zone underneath a constructed recharge project. And last is what's called a managed recharge project. This is where you take your reclaimed water and just discharge into a river or wash system, and it provides whatever beneficial reuse to that river or wash system.
But it goes down to someone else.
Goes down to somebody else, that's correct.
We're going to stop that eventually and moving. Okay.
And I'm going to touch on all 3 of these in a little more specifics here. Direct deliveries and reuse. So the reclaimed water is directly delivered to the end user. So a secondary reclaimed water infrastructure is needed. So this is the purple pipe. It needs transmission mains, a delivery distribution system. It needs storage facilities. So it comes with those expenses. But it provides a single reuse only to those end users. And traditionally, it usually goes for a water-intensive turf facility, such as at the ball field, and we're delivering reclaimed water to the ball fields currently. It provides 0% reclaimed long-term storage credits. And if you recall back from the last work session, we talked about our long-term storage credit bank account, where if we're able to recharge water and bank that, that's a future water supply that we can draw upon when needed. Next is the constructed recharge projects. These are, again, like the SAT site. It requires a water transmission system only. Requires, though, like the SAT site, large tracts of land. These basin-style construction projects require large tracts of land. For example, our SAT site was about 40 acres, was only able to recharge 4,500 acre feet per year. But it did provide 95% of the water in our long-term storage credit bank account. So it did have purpose. And that then could be indirectly recovered in our city wells and delivered as potable water. We're basically changing groundwater molecules legally into effluent and how we report that. So we're getting more reuses with that water. There's just a satellite image showing the SAT site there at the corner of Estrella Parkway and Yuma on the northwest corner there. There was 6 basins, approximately 40 acres. The Vadozone injection well system is a constructed project. Requires a reclaimed water transmission system, infrastructure only. It does not require large tracts of land. I'll kind of show you that in an upcoming slide. And it can be constructed unobtrusively along rights-of-ways or utility easements. And it provides 100% of reclaimed water in a long-term storage credit bank account. And again, this could be used then for multiple reuses, deliver as potable water as we recover that in our wells. And just want to have a simple cartoon kind of to illustrate what it is. You see that, that light gray pipe coming from the left, running into that blue box. That would be considered like a vault, a concrete vault underground. And you have that cylinder, which would be a shallow injection. That's the Vados injection well. And then you have the reclaimed water then percolating down in that Vadozone. That Vadozone is that tan area there you see identified. And that's basically a fancy word for the unsaturated area. So it's the pore spaces have air in it. And so that reclaimed water would percolate down just like it did in the basins, except it's not the land surface. We're just giving it a little help below surface. And eventually makes its way to the groundwater system.
Joanne?
So unlike the brine injection, this one's okay with the environment compared to the other one being not, correct?
That's correct. We are producing at the plant the highest Class A+, the highest recognized water quality effluent recognized by the state of Arizona. Lastly was the managed recharge projects. These are river discharges. River stream requires reclaimed water transmission system only. Does not require large tracts of land, but requires permitting to allow you to discharge your reclaimed water into the river wash. It may provide riparian area enhancements used for recreation corridors, but provides little to no reclaimed water recharge long-term storage credits, as you pointed out, Madam Mayor, for our water portfolio. Somebody else downstream will be able to use that water.
I hear that often. I won't tell you what city.
All right, so here's the city's current reclaimed water reuse. The majority of the reclaimed water is directly delivered to Palo Verde Nuclear Power Generating Station via their water transmission system. The reclaimed water is delivered there for direct reuse via a old reclaimed water delivery agreement we had completed back in the late 80s. The city is not receiving any financial value obtained by the city, and there's no reclaimed value for our long-term storage credit bank account. So they're getting a great asset at virtually free of charge. The only other alternative the city has
Wally?
is to...
Excuse me,
Mark, is there
Wally?
any way we can renegotiate this agreement?
Yes, I have spoken with APS as one of the owners of the plant, and they are very interested to try to update that. And we definitely want to have that as a discharge opportunity. Should this project move forward or other opportunities, we definitely want to have a fallback towards being able to discharge our reclaimed water somewhere if we have wells that go down or something similar asset that we can't discharge to. It makes perfect sense. And we definitely, they're interested in doing that, and they are interested in actually trying to update that and make it more versatile and maybe have value associated with it.
And have the flexibility at the same
Yes.
time.
Value for us or value for
Value for us.
Oh, good.
They're already getting the value already. It's the water.
Right.
That's the value.
They're getting it all, right?
Very one-sided right now.
That's correct.
Okay, good.
And the only alternative, so if APS decided that they want to turn off the pipe for 2 weeks, the only place we can put our reclaimed water is the river discharge right now. And of course, we're back to we get no value. Again, here's that shot of the system. So let's just jump into the Vadozone injection well proposal. There currently exists a reclaimed water transmission system within the city. It starts at the plant, at the very bottom there, that dark little box, the very in the map, the southwest corner there. That's a reclamation facility. That red line running north along that utility easement, and then making a right and going up Estrella Parkway, and you see it. It intersects and makes a right at Yuma. Estrella Parkway, that was the former SAT site in the northwest corner there. So it goes east along Yuma and then goes north along Bullard Avenue all the way to I-10. So we do already have a reclaimed water transmission system in place. So the project has kind of two phases. Phase one is actually the hydrologic model. We need to identify Avedos injection locations along this reclaimed transmission system. We would like to run also, once we identify proposed sites, run 10 and 20-year hydrologic scenarios that would demonstrate we could inject certain volumes as we grow through time, certain volumes of reclaimed water underground safely, not creating any land harm to the Department of Water Resources, which would be the permitting authority. We also will use a hydrologic model. Here's the additional benefits. Since we're already doing a hydrologic model for this, the city has a need to update our designation of assured water supplies before December of 2014, December 31st. So this model can be used also to assist with our hydrologic components for our designation. Also, we have a need for 2 of the city's pumping wells to have increased withdrawals. This model can also be used to help with the permitting to increase our withdrawals from 2 city wells. So there is a great economy of scale. We're actually going to get 3 benefits from this one hydrologic model. The second phase, really, once we identify these sites and run these scenarios where it really makes sense and the department has signed off, is actually go in the construction phase. So coming from the reclaimed water transmission line, actually construct the wells and those components and start injecting reclaimed water and gaining long-term storage credits. This is an actual Vados zone injection well that's associated with the Phoenix Goodyear Airport North Superfund site. It's on Dysart Road, one of 3. I just want to show you a picture there. It's about a 4-foot by 5-foot rectangular vault. That's at land surface, so it's pretty unobtrusive. It's in city street right of way. And you see that when the cover's opened, that's what it looks like inside. Just an injection well with some pipes going from their system, which is remediated groundwater. So we can touch on the benefits to the city. So it creates sustainable aquifer management. The reclaimed water is recharged in the same aquifer from where we're pumping from. So it's actually a great balance. We're trying to make a more sustainable aquifer balance here. Replenishment obligations. Under state law, we're required, wherever we pump, we have to replenish. So we're meeting those obligations. The indirect potable reuse. So if we take this reclaimed water, we inject it in the aquifer, we gain long-term storage credits, we can recover that indirectly and serve it as potable water. Additional benefits, reclaimed water storage underground. It can be stored underground for a very long period of time, and so in the future, if we have additional shortages we talked about previously, such as the Colorado River, we could rely on water we've stored underground and actually recover it to firm any CAP water shortages, Central Zone Project water shortages. So it helps us become more drought-proof, if you will, as we grow in the city. It improves potentially improves groundwater quality. As I mentioned, we're producing Class A plus effluent. And as we've talked about before, that the groundwater quality has high TDS, has other high components in it. So if we're actually injecting better quality water in a region that has worse or poorer water quality, we'll actually be improving the water quality regionally. So this is a very good thing. And of course, the financial value realized, we're keeping water in the city. We're really taking advantage of that, as you pointed out, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to show you this as going back to this water value. This is a chart showing acre feet on the left-hand vertical axis from 3,000 to 9,000 acre feet. These are years on the horizontal bottom axis, and then dollars, and that's water value dollars on the right, the green numbers there. The blue is the projected model I talked about, how much reclaimed water we would potentially be producing by the year 2035, just over 8,000 acre feet. Based on our production trends, we get about 40% back from what we deliver. The green, associated with the green numbers, is that water value trend. That's based on historic CAP water trends and the indices used there. So you can see that that has about in today's water value, the per acre foot in 2014 is about $160, $170 an acre foot. By the year 2035, you see it's going to be approaching $350 an acre foot. So as through time, as whatever we bank today has more water value in the future. So you'll see that comparison. Just wanted to point that out. At the end of the day, an estimated 133,600 acre feet of reclaimed water could be gained as long-term storage credits between 2014 and 2035. That's a substantial amount of water.
Substantial.
Financial capabilities. The fiscal year 14 capital improvement plan carryover. There is $2.4 million carryover funding from projects WR 1001, WR 1202, and WW 1002. And these were carryover funds from the CIP that was described as reclaimed water expansion projects. We also, in January, we came before you and were authorized to apply for a U.S. Bureau of Reclamation grant. We were one of 2 entities in the state. You probably read about that in a council memo, but it was one of 2 entities in the state that received an award for the Water Smart grant. So we anticipate on using these funds, $300,000 toward this project. Also, as I mentioned, the model, we have a need to complete and renew our designation of assured water supplies before 2014. So we have an operational, water resources operational budget that was set up for the designation of assured water supply. So we have this funding as part of the modeling and part of that pumping analysis for the 2 wells. And then also fiscal year 14, the water distribution operations budget, we have $20,000 for the well pumping analysis. So the grand total of the project is looking about $2.835 million. And these numbers that we come up with this budget were based off of other cities, Peoria, Surprise, and other cities that actually have created these vadose injection wells, as to give us a rule of thumb on good estimates for what this budget would look like. We're hoping that we'll, of course, the hydrology model is the key to identify how many wells we're going to be able to get in, what the volumes that will the vadose will be able to take. So I can't give you a definitive number now, but we feel pretty good. We'll have close to the 3,500 acre feet. We're hoping, and maybe we'll even exceed it. But the model will be the true test of what will be our success. So on tonight's council meeting, we'll have a budget transfer request, and then on the September 23rd meeting, we'll have a resolution before you for approval. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions, Council?
That was a very good
That was a
presentation.
great presentation. And, you know, again, the ending is, that's our gold, water.
We are, I think, controlling our destiny a lot more by
We have to
doing
be
it.
good stewards of it, so, good. All right, thank you. Okay, Council, I'm going to adjourn this meeting because I don't think we need to go on with any other information until the main